Well, good morning and welcome to today's daily devotion as we continue our series in the book of Job. Today we're on Job chapter 12. And so Job's friends have been trying to comfort him and trying to help Job understand why he's going through all the things when he's lost his family, his livelihood, and even his health. They basically all concluded that he must have sinned so badly in the eyes of God that God is now pouring out his wrath on Job. But I love that Job's overall conclusion is that there's something more that God must be trying to show him. But as humans, we can only understand a small portion of what God is capable of. And we try to force him into a box and we say, this is God. So this is all that he can do. This is all that I'm willing to see him do. These are all the things that he is capable of. But he's so far more capable of the things that we don't understand that this is wrong, and that we can actually find that in Job's conclusion right here. So in verse 3, we see that Job tells his friends that although they're wrong for trying to put God in his box, he understands where they're coming from. And he says, "But I have a mind. I am not inferior to you. Who doesn't know the things you are talking about?" So basically, everything his friends has said is common knowledge. This has been a common theology of the people of God for so long. The overall understanding is that good should be rewarded with good and evil should be rewarded with wrath. In chapter 4, he says, "I am a laughingstock to my friends by calling on God who answers me. The righteous and upright man is a laughingstock. The one who is at ease holds calamity is contempt." He's getting so frustrated to this point. He's basically repeated himself, saying he hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't messed up. He hasn't sinned. His kids haven't sinned. He's called on God in the past, and God has answered him. But now, when he does this and he doesn't receive answers, he's being mocked. He's being said that God's not listening to him anymore, that there's something missing, that Job has messed up to a point that God is no longer listening. And his friends are thinking so little of him. They're comparing his life to that of a disposable lamp. And so a lamp in that time is a small clay object, and it had a whisk in it, or a whip in it, and you would light it and it would just go and go and go, and it would provide light to a room. Well, there were lamps that were disposable, and so that's what they're comparing Job to. And so just something that can be thrown away, something that doesn't matter anymore, there's no meaning behind it. And if we skip down to verse 7, I actually wanted to point out something that Job claims. So when we often consider evil in the world, we naturally want to distance God from it. We want to say that Satan is fully responsible for the evil things in the world. And while Satan does have his hand and he twists the things that God has deemed holy and good, God does allow those things to happen in the world. And we're not saying that, and Job says that God is actually responsible for these things, for the suffering of innocent people, for the prospering of wicked men. He says it's so obvious that the animals instruct you. Ask the birds of the sky and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will instruct you. Let the fish of the sea inform you. But what are they trying to teach us? Which of these does not know that the hand of the God has done this? He's telling us that God is behind everything. He's in ultimate control, complete control. There's nothing that goes unnoticed by God, whether it be good or evil, and that he allows things to happen. So we really see this in this chapter, that there's so much more to God than what humans can even understand. He's wiser than we could ever imagine. He's all-powerful and ultimately in control of everything. And the chapter itself wraps up with Job explaining that God's ultimate wisdom to his friends, telling them that he's wise with how he sends floods and droughts, and that if he breaks something down, that it cannot be rebuilt unless he says so. That if he imprisons somebody, they can't be released unless he says so. And that everything that God does has a meaning. There's always a bigger picture. So Job has heard his three friends, and he ultimately finds their wisdom lacking. They haven't proven themselves to be able to help with his distress. They haven't comforted him at all. They've actually managed to confuse him more and to just make him frustrated and angry. They're not helping him trust God's wisdom. Instead, they're trying to understand God's ways. and that's not working. So Job spent all of chapter 12 telling his friends that their advice isn't helping, and then explaining that God has a plan and that there's more to their sing. And we'll continue with Job chapter 13 tomorrow. I hope you have a good rest of the day. God bless you.